Hi guys, and welcome back to another video where today I'm going to be discussing the diplomatic and economic relations of the United States of America and Cuba. So, um, yeah, no, I'm not really going to I'm going to be discussing my top 10 favorite bass lines of Wobble, bassist formerly of Public Image Ltd fame, which ironically only accounts for 3 years of his professional career, despite since having had an enduring solo career spanning 5 decades since his leaving. His output vast, his work ethic indefatigable, just a model industry professional. This is a man who transcended punk and whose reputation for musicianship precedes him, packaging world music and its subgenres in a consumable pop music capacity, permitting him to collaborate with many respected musicians from across the globe, as well as high-profile domestic pop artists such as the late Sinead O'Connor, the late Dolores O'Riordan. Inadvertently, there appears to be a mortal theme here. Wobble is also invariably endorsed by esteemed peers, most notably Flea of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I cannot recall the interview exactly, but to paraphrase, he essentially said that any beginner bassist should listen to Wobble. And I guess the reason being is that Wobble's bass lines are not overtly complex, they're easily accessible and often at the forefront of the mix, and to replicate these bass parts by ear should come with ease for any self-educating beginner bass player, yet allowing you to learn to approach the instrument with a level of maturity, with concise timing, placing prominence and importance on limited notes as opposed to those that are unnecessarily convoluted. Ultimately, how to play with a sophisticated deftness of touch, whilst refraining from just going aloof with unnecessary notes and fills. Anyway, in this video I'm going to be running through my top 10 Wobble bass lines. I'm going to be including some choice selections from perhaps his more famous catalogue with Public Image, but the list will likely be dominated by solo efforts released under either his name or his Invaders of the Hearts ensemble from LPs that I'm privileged enough to own. Unfortunately, with such an enriched back catalogue of studio LPs, I am not familiar with all Wobble studio work, so there may be some notable absences from my list that you are surprised by. Patty, I know that you're a super fan, and if you're watching this and there's some notable omissions from my list, I apologize sincerely. I'll also be talking a little about the respective albums containing these songs. I mean, they're all so beautifully produced, really nice productions, a definitive fusion of world music with pop sensibilities, transcending genres and blurring the lines that are often difficult and inaccessible to many. Just vastly underappreciated, though I do believe his Rising Above Bedlam LP was a shortlist nominee for the 1991 Mercury Prize, if I'm not mistaken. It's a good album. I have it right here, actually. Production is really cool. Mark Furder, the third Invader of the Heart, who was responsible for much of the technical aspects of the production, arrangements, engineering, etc. The art direction is quite poor, though. It's early 90s digital painting, yet rendered not so well. I'm very surprised that it got the okay to even reach the printers, because it's actually very pixelated, if you can see down there. So yeah, but it is a good album. Anyway, let's crack on with it. I have here for moral guidance, this is Brian Wilson. And also I have with me Rosa Diaz, because apparently I have a proclivity for slightly dangerous, sociopathic, mentally unstable women. So yeah, Rosa Diaz is here with me. They're my emotional support succulents, because I mean, they, and only they, can relate to and subsequently understand the problems facing a lower middle, upper middle class privileged person living in a free world urban utopia. So yeah, life is very difficult. I need them. Anyway, shall we get on with it? Okay. Okay, so in at number 10, I'm going to go for a song from the very beginning of Wobble's career. It is from Public Image Ltd's second album, Metal Box. However, this right here that I'm holding is actually second edition, a repackaging of the Metal Box released in 1980. Metal Box was released in 1979, of course. But this bass line doesn't work so well live. It is the studio cut that is the definitive version. There's many live versions out there, bootlegs. The only officially released version that I'm aware of is Paris in the Spring LP, live LP. But yeah, the way it's mixed on Metal Box, it's so dynamic, there's such a groove, it's so ominous and oppressive. I just think it's great. I mean, at this early stage in his career, despite the fact that he's clearly writing very good bass lines, and also he's playing them well, in execution, they're very good. You can still, there's like a sloppy edge to it, a kind of punk approach. I'd say that it wasn't until the late 80s, early 90s that his playing, he tightened up and he became exceptionally professional in approach in both style and execution. So yeah, number 10, Bad Baby. Okay, so moving on, number 9. This was a tie between Tiger Tiger from his Inspiration of William Blake LP and Bomber from 1991's Rising Above Bedlam LP. In the end, I've gone with Bomber. Okay, so Bomba, it has Natasha Atlas on vocal. It's really simple in style and execution. I mean, so much of Jalwal's appeal is in his inimitable sound, and songs such as Bomba, Visions of You, Becoming More Like God, as soon as the bass drops, it's like being greeted by an old friend or a lost love or something. It's such a distinguished tone. And this guy knew what he was doing. So many of the hit songs begin with no bass. We're allowed to consume several phrases, several bars devoid of any low end, before ultimately the bass drops, which immediately places it into focus, is a focal point for the rest of the song. It's just a really smart technique to imply the bass like that. So yeah, it's one of my favorites from its respective LP. It gets stuck in my head quite often. Yeah, I love it. So number 9, Bomba. Okay, moving on, number 8, and I'm gonna revert back to Public Image for this one. I'm gonna go with Theme from Public Image's debut LP, first issue. What a great bassline, and what an introduction to Public Image as a band, as an entity. The first album, very first song. Boom, 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 boom. I love it. It's great. If I recall correctly, it was one of the first songs that I actually learned on bass guitar. Bass guitar was my first instrument. I feel like that is my instrument. I know that I do guitar videos here on YouTube, but bass is my true instrument. That I have a strong affinity with the bass as an instrument. I feel like it's a real studio instrument. It transcends genres. There's so much music where a guitar is completely redundant. It's completely unnecessary. I'm thinking so many Phil Spector Wall of Sound songs, Brian Wilson, the Beach Boys, going back to George Gershwin, going back to Schubert, Wagner, and it's like there's no place for guitar there, whereas there is always place in any of these compositions for a bit of bass, whether it be an upright bass, double bass, or if it's an electric bass. I feel like the bass can be used in any genre in the way that percussion can be. So, and of course, I would die to have a go on Jah Wobble's Ovation Magnum bass guitar because that thing is absolutely beautiful. But anyway, so yeah, Theme, it has such a groove to it. Again, it's one of the early songs that showed so much promise in Jah Wobble's ability as both a bass player and a songwriter, a writer of bass lines. I love it. But also, there's lyrics, John Lydon vocal. What a shock Sex Pistols fans must have got when they dropped the needle onto that. They will not have been expecting that. Okay, so number 7, and I have gone for a song titled Gone to Croatan from this album right here, titled Heaven and Earth. I believe this was 1996. Oh, okay, so this song is pretty immense. Produced and co-written by seasoned producer and collective band leader Bill Laswell, who I have raved about in other videos before. Bass-driven ambient would be a great way to describe this track. I'm yet to talk about pop tones in this video, but if as Jah Wobble so eloquently stated, it is indeed as symmetrical as a snowflake. This bass line right here is the complete opposite. I actually cannot transcribe it unless I actually sit down and put a lot of effort into it because the bass line appears to have no tonal center yet. It does seem quite rigid. It does have direction. It clearly has written parts that Jah Wobble is following. So perhaps in its chaos, the symmetry is actually there. It's just, it seems to be played in a different time signature to the rest of the song. The rest of the song begins to syncopate. It's kind of strange. It hurts my brain to think about it too much, actually, but yeah. As an album, the bass playing, the quality is of the highest order, owing to the fact that you have a great bass player in Wobble being produced and written for by an industry pro like Bill Laswell, who, as a musician, is most proficient in, yep, you guessed it, bass playing. So the quality control is very tight. And again, because Bill Laswell is involved, the whole project is of an exceptionally high standard of quality. This is the finest pressed Jah Wobble album. It's a double LP gatefold, super weighty, dense. The art direction is so professional, the printing exquisite, which is no surprise when we see that it was released on Island Records, which is, of course, a hallmark of quality. I think this was the second in a run of Wobble albums released on Island. His early 90s efforts were obviously recognized and scored him a lucrative deal, recognized by Chris Blackwell, yeah, of Island Records. I have a crazy story actually that kind of proved to me that fate does exist. It's so weird, but like when fate presents you with horrific or traumatic event period in your life, just remember that fate will always bring something beautiful again. It comes in cycles. But anyway, essentially what happened was I started listening to this album. I downloaded the MP3, and being a collector of vinyl, I wanted it on vinyl. Searched around online, super expensive, super obscure, hard to come by. And yeah, within 2 weeks of this, I flew to Toronto, and I was actually in a record store. Rotate this. I actually have the card here, as you can see. Rotate this. This album was on my mind, and for whatever reason, I just thought I'm going to chance it. So I went to the J section. There's nothing there. And then I thought I'll go look under W for Wobble, and I'm just sifting through, and it must have been like the fourth record, and it just jumped out at me, and I just had a moment because it's like it was so ridiculous. Honestly, I just freaked out in the middle of this record store in Toronto. The reason this is so crazy is because this album is super super obscure on vinyl. Like you will never find one in the wild, and will have to resort to Discogs or eBay. But also coupled with the fact that I was looking for it, you may stumble upon it in the wild not looking for it, but I literally went there looking for it and found it. And it was like the stars had aligned. I know it just seems like such an insignificant thing, but that's fate. That is fate. So anyway, yeah. Wait, number seven, Gone to Croatan. Okay, so moving on, number six, and yeah, I'm gonna go back to Public Image and Second Edition again. And from this album this time, I'm going to select Careering. Fantastic bass line, so rigid, but such a groove. It drives the song. And when you have a song like Careering that's just so immensely powerful, like in its own right, under its own weight, to be the driving force behind that, you know that this bass line is pretty special. To be playing a significant melodic line on a song that's already so powerful and so evocative, Wobble really had to pull one out of the bag on this, and he did. It is fantastic. So yeah, number six and Careering. Okay, so number five, and I am going to go for Bird Hair of Compassion from this album right here, Moo. Okay, so I once saw somebody refer to Bird Hair of Compassion as a career-defining song, and I couldn't concur with this sentiment anymore. It is monumental, a towering achievement in his discography. There's multiple languages on this track. I'm only able to discern English and presumably Mandarin. I don't think it's Cantonese, pretty sure it's Mandarin. Um, Wobble did the artwork himself on this album, as you can tell. However, it is one of the few Wobble albums to be released on Trojan Records, so despite the low-end graphics, it is packaged beautifully. It's a very nice product. But anyway, back to the song. The song features the longest suspense before the bass drop of any Wobble song that I can think of, and while the bass line is routinely simplistic and repetitive, it does get pretty complex. The fills and inflections that he begins to add around the middle of the song are excellent. It is bass playing of the highest order. It really is high quality bass playing. It's a really long song. I believe it clocks in at around 10.5 minutes, but it's an experience. You have to consume it from start to finish. It's staggering. It is a monumental audio recording. So yeah, number five, With Her of Compassion. Okay, moving on. Number four, I'm gonna go for Ursula from the album Rising Above Bedlam, 1991. Okay, so Ursula, the bass playing on this is ridiculous. I tend to emphasize the simplicity in Wobble's technique, so it's always surprising when you hear a song like Ursula, where I'm reminded that actually Wobble has developed his skills over the years, and I didn't even know that he could slap until I saw him live at the Horseshoe Tavern. He really, really is a good bassist. Don't be fooled by like the simplistic nature of it. The guy is really adept at bass playing. Also, Natasha Atlas features again on vocal here. There's a great brass section and Latin scales, courtesy of guitarist Justin Adams. To be honest, I would have released Bomber as the secondary single behind Visions of You from this album. Ursula is a deep cut, really. The redacted version for the 7-inch does it no favors. But yeah, the middle eight section, the bridge or the middle eight section, whatever you want to call it, the structure of this song is quite unusual. The bass playing there, it's frenetic. It's insane. I love it. So yeah, Ursula. Moving on. Okay, so number three, I am going to go for Becoming More Like God from the album Take Me to God, which was 1995, I believe. This is another album that was released on Island Records, so again, the packaging is of high quality. Okay, I love this song. The bass, again, we have to wait in suspense before the bass drops, and when it does, wow, so high in the mix, such a driving force throughout the song. I really love the percussion. I can't tell, is it tambourine? Is some kind of bells? It's not sleigh, it's not hi-hats. I'm not sure what it is, but I love it. I should know what it is because I'm taking a real interest in percussion of late. There's a vibe. There's a feel, an energy on this song. It's really quite eerie. I can't quite put my finger on it. It has an atmosphere. It contains an atmosphere, which is I find very rare in recordings. Any point after the early 70s, and then particularly with the advent of digital throughout the 80s and 90s, I feel that recordings begin to sound quite sterile and soulless and lacking in any warmth or atmosphere. But yeah, this song has a palpable atmosphere, and that is why I love it. But again, I'm here to talk about the bass, and the bass line is fantastic, and there's so many cool little variations and fills that he adds to it. Ah, it's tremendous. Boom, 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 boom. And then I love when he goes do 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 do. It's great. And the vocals as well. I mean, especially in the chorus. It's only what, two-part harmony, but it sounds so good, so ethereal. Yeah. So that was my number three, Becoming More Like God. Okay, moving on, and number two. And again, back to the metal box, I'm gonna go with Pop Tones. Okay, so Wobble himself claimed that this was the jewel in the crown of public image, and he's quoted as saying that the bass line is as symmetrical as a snowflake, which it is not, but I understand exactly what he meant by that. It's just a bass line that I could listen to on repeat for hour after hour after hour. Again, it's just one of those songs from my formative years that inspired me to purchase a bass guitar, learn bass guitar, inspired me to pick up a guitar because of Keith Levine's guitar work on the song. I wanted to emulate that also. It's just a really influential song on me as a person and my development. It's very telling because I do have a video here on my YouTube channel where I basically teach both parts in the same video, Keith Levine's guitar parts and also Wobble's bass parts. So if you have not seen that yet and you are interested, go check it out. You're always welcome. Just remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you. If you are not familiar with this song, please, I implore you to go check it out. I know that John Lydon's vocals are not for everybody. I only wish that there was an instrumental version. If there was an instrumental version, I would listen to that religiously, as much as I listen to the actual studio cut, with John's vocals. But yeah, it's just it's a special song, and I think everybody involved knew that it was special. Keith, John, probably not Richard Didansky. He was supposed to be the drummer on the song. Apparently he didn't have a feel for it, so Keith Levine said, like, fuck it, move over. I'm going to play the drums myself. So Keith Levine, guitarist Keith Levine, actually plays the drums on Pop Tones. Interesting fact. But anyway, yeah, I want to wrap this video up, so let's get to my number one. Drum roll, please. No, go away, feral timpani. I'm gonna go for Visions of You, featuring the late Sinead O'Connor. It just seems right, to be honest. What an amazing song. Sinead O'Connor's vocals, she just knocks it out of the park. Jawel's bass line. However, in this case, I'm actually going to direct attention away from the studio cut and toward a live version. If you can go search on YouTube, Visions of You, Wobble, live on The Word. I believe this was 1991 or 2. Wow, the energy in that performance, it is unbelievable. It's one of the best live performances that I have ever seen in a television studio. And he's playing this crazy bass line whilst also singing. I've tried. I think of myself as quite a good musician. I cannot do it, so I don't know how Wobble did it. But he goes crazy on this live version. If you want to see how good Wobble really is, please check out this live version and just watch the deviations away from the original melodic line. All the runs, the sheer number of like different runs that he does throughout it. I mean, this is all ad-libbed, and some of these fills and runs are they're insane. but he absolutely nails every single one. And they all work as well. To do that live and improvise like that, it's quite risky. But wow, he had everything under control. It was a masterful live performance. His vocals are a bit shaky at the start of the song, but you know, I'm not interested in Wobble because of his vocal ability. So yeah, my number one Wobble bassline is Visions of You. What an astounding bassline. So yeah, back to you in the studio. So that was my top 10 Wobble bass lines. I'd also just like to add that I can appreciate the themes addressed in Wobble's music. You know, in a society where most songs are about a concept very few actually understand or respect, love, it's just refreshing to be able to escape into a discography where most often we find religion, spiritualism, mysticism, shamanism, and consciousness as central themes. My favorite songs are love songs, admittedly, yet call me cynical. I just find the notion of romantic love and its delusionally idealistic sentiments to be something entirely illogical, psychologically damaging, and to be honest, just a complete waste of time. So yeah, it's refreshing. In fact, I'm going to quote verbatim Wobble from the rear of Rising Above Bedlam. So he says, music is a force in itself. My responsibility is to tune into this force, this power greater than myself, and by way of imagination, help to make it at this time and place. Brackets, and hopefully make a few bob in the process. Let's just pretend you didn't say that, okay? Okay. There's many instances of Wobble's songs addressing the concept of happiness from within oneself, which is something completely logical, yet rarely discussed in a world where people pin their happiness on other people and then essentially just discard them when they've used them up. So again, refreshing. So anyway, thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please remember to click like, share, and also subscribe. And you may be interested, Wobble's son is actually a musician currently releasing music under the pseudonym GZ Tian. And if you'd like to check him out, my recommendations would be the songs Toxic and also Dim Sum. Okay, so anyway, that's it from me. Again, thanks for watching, and until next time, the public image, goodbye.